Sophia Richard, and forget to shop Mercer the Perp on ygoproject.com. That's ygoproject.com/merch with -a-perp. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Trauma Translator Live Pod. I'm your host, Lauren Friedman, and today I'm really excited to chat with Brian Lange because actually this episode, Building New Neural Pathways, the AdTech connection, is really near and dear to my heart, and it's actually what precipitated the Trauma Translator ecosystem. If you're not aware, because I haven't really teased this up, the whole purpose of my mission is to really help educate people about the mind-body connection and ways that they could change their lives in real time. I have a crazy story, and you'll have to stay tuned to hear all of that through the episodes, follow along across platforms. But when I first went to market, when I first started my healing journey, I learned about trauma through the lens of technology. And it's crazy because I was in therapy since I was 5, and both of my parents were therapists. And nobody understood the mind-body connection. I'd been having somatic responses to trauma since I was under 2. But it took till I was almost 40 where I was having flashbacks and wetting the bed and brain fog and all kinds of disparate somatic responses to trauma that nobody ever understood. In fact, one of the reasons I call myself the Trauma Translator is because I actually used my multiple times. I've lost over 100 pounds multiple times since 2013. Despite extreme diet and exercise, I was starving myself. I was taking 6 laxatives a night. I scaled up to 14 hours a week of CrossFit and other HIIT, and I still was almost 300 pounds multiple times, and it was from unprocessed trauma living in my body. So I was able to use that since 2013 to explain data, fidelity, and quality across varying levels of audiences and understanding, and that's what I'm doing with trauma. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Brian Lange. Welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks, Lauren, for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for being here. So share with the audience a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so pretty long and lengthy career in marketing communications. 25 years. It's hard to say that, but really started my career foundationally with an agency in San Jose, California, in public relations, media relations, and had evolved that over the years and did a real hard pivot about 17, 18 years ago into digital media and digital marketing, and have moved my career forward by way of diving deeper into data, diving deeper into MarTech and AdTech and how they integrate and interconnect to drive personalized customer experiences from both a B2B standpoint and direct to customer standpoint. And most recently, over the last few years, I've shifted into the fractional space, which has been really helpful for me because I've been using the fractional work because I went back to graduate school and just completed actually my 3rd master's degree at the University of Southern California in December. But the fractional space is interesting, and it is an opportunity for me to have more flexibility with my schedule, but really be able to step in and drive marketing initiatives forward. So that's really what I've been up to the last couple of years, and currently working with a company called Attributy, which is based in Germany, but it's penetrating the US market right now, and it offers multi-touch attribution and media mix modeling software solution capabilities. So that's where I'm at.
Wow, that's MTA and MMM are serious places to be. Where are you doing that directly, or you're working them as in a fractional capacity?
Yeah, I'm fractional chief marketing officer right now. So again, this is an early stage startup. So getting to the point where we're trying to get the foundation in place, continued funding, and growth within the U.S. market.
Oh, I'm sorry, you just broke up. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, so I'm a fractional CMO with Attributy right now. It's an early stage startup, and we're trying to penetrate the U.S. market and establish our space on that landscape.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting place to be, especially with GDPR and things that are right, like in the US versus other countries.
It is. It is, yes, especially with CCPA here, obviously, which is in California, but it's been kind of universally adopted across the US. But, this is a really crowded space, and a very, very competitive space. There are solutions that I think have positioned themselves very well, Rockerbox, Measured, and some others. But I really feel like Attribute's got a very unique niche that is attractive to the small, medium-sized business type of instance. So we're trying to just integrate and break into this market and drive success.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm very familiar with this space. My background is in data and measurement. And that's actually why I was really excited to chat with you today, because it is a really competitive space and it's ever changing and the rules are changing every day, and what you're able to share and what you're able to capture change. And I kind of liken it to healing, because, when I first started, I started to think about building new neural pathways through the lens of technology. When you put like a JavaScript tag, that's what I used to sell for many years, or a pixel or some type of piece of code, you're capturing data and then you're iterating on it, right? And you're working in ways to measure it, actually understand it from different lenses. And that's kind of how our brains work too, right? If you think about MMM or MTA, for those who aren't familiar at home, it's multi-touch attribution. And MMM is what is it? Multimedia measurement?
Media mix modeling.
Media mix modeling. Yeah, it's been a few years since I've ingested those data sets. So are you working with log level data files, or how does that work?
Yeah. So really, what we're trying, it's interesting. We're using our own software for our own marketing initiatives, right? But we're obviously leveraging account-based marketing as our primary tactical solution, and as it relates to drilling into our target audience. But really, what we're trying to do is really, and I think what Attribute is its strength is its predictive modeling component, right? I think that is the piece that is really, really most of value in terms of where do you put those marketing and advertising dollars for total optimization. So, it's interesting. I've never really used or worked with a company where we're using our own software as a complement, as a support source for our marketing efforts. So it's been exciting to do that.
No, that's like the proof is in the pudding. I love that. That's really cool that you're using your own software. Right? Yeah. I mean, it's something you could speak to all your clients, right? Wait, you just
100%. Yeah, it's another case study, right? It's another case study in terms of what we can use and what we can do with our own marketing initiative, which I think has been it's been enlightening for us, because we're really able to test and iterate with the software solution, right? And be able to better understand how to measure, how to look at incrementality from a measurement standpoint, and how are we able to really take credit for certain acquisition points based upon that user journey.
Yeah. No, it's I don't know if you just broke up or if you could hear me still. I know we were having some technical problems before for those people at home. That's why we were a little late. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. I wasn't sure if you froze or not. Yeah.
Okay, I can hear you.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's a really interesting space. The MTA MMM solution space is, I think it's growing, and there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of how AI is going to impact the space, and still with the never-ending deprecation of the third-party cookie, from Chrome's standpoint, brands are looking for ways in which to better measure their marketing performance and looking for optimization opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the MTAs and the MMMs of the world are all trying to provide attribution, right, for all the things that we're doing. And when you were talking about data sets, right, and you're looking at data sets. So the way that I have looked at this, right, is like building new neural pathways. Everything you're talking about is like, how do you give something credit? How do you invest more dollars here? How do you, move away from certain platforms, from certain, whatever that looks like, right? And that's kind of how I've looked at healing, right? Because when I first went to market, when I first started, I keep saying that, but when I first started this healing journey, it really was something that I didn't know anything about neuroscience. I knew about technology though. So when I first started trauma therapy, I asked my therapist, I'm like, why didn't nobody know this for almost 40 years? Why didn't no one pick up on this? And she was like, well, number one, nobody's taught this in school. None of the therapists, none of the doctors I went to, medical professionals, nobody knew about this. So when she explained, the first thing she said to me, what fires wires, and my brain was not working. It took like literally almost until like 2024, 2025, maybe even now for my brain to fully work. Because I was really sick for a really long time. And when you think about data, right,
Yeah.
and pixels and creating data quality and iterating on data sets, it's similar to how your brain works. And when you model and when you start giving it input, right, and you start to train it, it's similar to what you're doing. Obviously from an attribution standpoint, it's a little bit different. And for those at home, I am streaming across other platforms. Attribution is just what happens. Like, is there a conversion event? Did you buy a shirt? Did you buy the hat? Did you click on an ad? Did you engage with it? So that's all that attribution is, but it's providing credit to whatever that platform is that drove that consumer engagement, or that B2B engagement, whatever that looks like. So when you think about pixels, because I was selling JavaScript pixels for many years, which, I was addicted to them, and arguably they may or may not have ruined my life, but I really was addicted to it. And I thought in AdTech. So when my therapist first said, who knew nothing about technology, she still doesn't. She's like, I trust that you're saying that this makes sense. But when she first said what fires wires, I was like, she's like, when a neuron fires, it actually wires with other neurons, and it creates these pathways in your brain that you keep going after over and over again. You keep doing those same things. Your nervous system becomes entrained to those same habits. But with the proper type of awareness and therapies and ways that you could actually build new neural pathways, you could actually change all those habits. You could change those deep-seated belief systems that are keeping you stuck in those cycles of dysfunction, whatever that looks like for you, whatever's keeping you stuck, whether it's personal, professional, in your body, romantic. Trauma is pervasive, and it's just stress that overwhelms our ability to cope. So when you think about neural pathways and data, it's very similar. You can literally change the way your brain works by informing it properly, and you could create new patterns so you're not iterating on those same faulty sets of logic. Because when you talk about measurement, right, and you talk about attribution, you need to have a clean set of data. You can't have it skewed in a certain way. My background's in third-party measurement. So I really do believe in a holistic view of measurement in order to keep those data sets clean. But that's truly why I love this, because you could stop drinking, you could stop any addiction, you could really change your whole life. Like I used to have these deep-seated beliefs that I had to stay stuck in these cycles because I didn't have any other option. And when you're able to train your brain, you can transform your whole life.
Yeah, no, those are all good points, Lauren. I want to underscore and punctuate the importance of what you alluded to, and that's when you talk about the data, the quality, right? The data integrity is so critical because it's what you're ingesting, right? It's what you're bringing into the solution, and if it's suspect or questionable, you're going to get suspect and questionable outcomes or outputs, right? So the data quality is really, really critical.
Yeah, no, and that's literally the same way our brains work and the same way our bodies work.
Exactly.
It's like garbage in, garbage out. It's like using Salesforce, right?
100%.
So if you're putting in crap into your body, if you're speaking, unkindly to yourself, if you're over stressed, if you don't even know that you feel these things, if you have no connection to yourself, you're going to keep getting those same results. I never understood why I would work out and I would starve myself, and I thought I was doing everything right. I actually just posted on Instagram "Wrong Way" from Sublime because, nobody ever told me it was the wrong way. I didn't know I was living the wrong way. I thought I was living the right way. I thought I was doing all the things that were healthy for me. That's why my hat from Merch with a Perk says Neuroplasticity Nerd, because neuroplasticity has changed my whole life. Like, I'm obsessed with it. It's not just big things, right? Like you're talking about data, fidelity, and quality. it's the little small things. Like I broke my arm 7 times as a kid, 6 of the times on this arm, 1 time on this arm. And I thought it was a klutz. And yeah, when you train your brain, you could change your whole life. Exactly. And I truly never thought, like I always felt like I had a phantom limb, which isn't really the definition of what a phantom limb is, but I never had use of my left arm. It just didn't exist. And, there's also a whole side of your left body that's attributed to the feminine side. And I was very much in my masculine. So we could go into that spiritual type of journey at a different date. But when we think about, neuroplasticity, yeah, breaking, getting hurt. I used to get hurt all the time at the gym. I used to always have to take breaks. And now I work on my fascia, and I actually am in my body. Being embodied is something as being aware of what's happening inside your body. But unless you are able to change those neural pathways, there's no way for you to get there. And when you think about data and the fidelity and the quality of it, and then manipulating it right afterwards through an MMM and MTA solution, it's really the quality of the data set that you're putting in there to get those outcomes. And it's the same way our brains work. If you keep doing the same things over and over, you're going to get the same dysfunctional results. And if you're able to change
Right.
it
100%.
over time, you could actually, create new results. And it's the same thing with data, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And those parallels, I think, are very evident in terms of the ingestion of data. But there's got to be a filter. There's got to be a process in place of discernment and data validation. Again, and as you're alluding to your brain, you've got to have that filter in terms of what you're bringing in, what you're allowing in. It's really important to make sure that that filter is in place. Because from a software solution standpoint, it's going to, when that data is ingested, it's going to take the data as face value and it's going to, the veracity of it's going to be considered accurate, right? And so that entry point is really important to make sure that what you're bringing in has already been synthesized and has already been validated, and it's considered quality. That's the way it has to be.
So, it's funny. I'm not sure if you've been able to catch any of the previous episodes, but last week I had on one of my affiliate partners, Camuso, which is literally my favorite way to actually reset my nervous system in real time. It's really good. We'll actually do a breath together at the end of this episode. I actually want to start doing it at the beginning of the episodes, but I haven't gotten there yet. But when you talk about discernment, I've never heard about discernment in data, but discernment,
Right.
in your life, in your brain, only comes from a baseline of calmness. You could never get there in a hyper arousal state. And it's the same thing when you think about data sets, right? Like there's no hyper arousal in data sets, but there's data sets that are siloed. There's data sets that, that really don't have the efficacy that you would need in order to manipulate them. And the only way that you would be able to figure that out is by like testing it out, right? Like unless you have some type of way to know that. So when you're talking to your clients, how are you advising them to what are the channels and the environments that you're measuring the MMM and MTA in, first of all?
Yeah, so it's an omni-channel approach, right? In terms of our marketing efforts. And again, I'm not client facing. I'm working within the org, again, as from a fractional standpoint, to drive the marketing initiative, which is an omni-channel implementation and execution, which again, the fulcrum, the centerpiece to that is account-based marketing, right? That is our critical, which has a programmatic media component to it, of course. When you're targeting that audience prospect, it is a very sophisticated software solution, and there's a number of platforms in the ABM space, demand-based, Terminus, Sixth Sense, several of them that have evolved and advanced their technologies substantially over the years, baking in, integrating their own AI elements to make sure that they're maximizing the technology to drill deeply into that decision-making body, right? Because it's typically, from a B2B standpoint, it's not one decision maker. It's decision by committee. And so you really have to drill in and identify that prospect account, that prospect decision maker and or makers. And so what we're doing is we're looking at from a full funnel standpoint, our demand gen, our prospecting, down into our engagement, and then our lower funnel activities. We've got dynamic retargeting, different tactical solutions in place to really cultivate that relationship. Because again, this is we're not selling shoes here, right? We're selling a
Yeah.
very complex, sophisticated, complicated in some respects software solution, which again, as I mentioned earlier, in a very, very crowded space, so there's a lot of different competitive influence. And this is not a decision that's made overnight. The latency, the decision latency can be up to a year in some cases.
No, I know. I've been selling that type of solution. Like when you talked about the AI at the beginning, I was selling an AI and ML type of SaaS solution since like 2016. So I totally understand what you're saying. And to your point, like the AI and the ML isn't new, right? And for those at home, ML is machine learning. And similar to your brain, like you need to make sure, like you said, decisioning, and those neural pathways that you could recreate based on those new data sets is something that you could actually use to change your life and make decisioning in real time. Like I used to think that I had an alcohol addiction. I used to think that I had a fat problem. I used to think that, my body had all these different problems. But in reality, I didn't have any of those problems. I just had unprocessed complex trauma in my body. So when you think about data sets informing, how you're going to work, and those sales cycles, by the way, for the B2B standpoint, they could be 12 to 18 months to never.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I know. I spent all my career. That's why I've lost my job 6 times after M&A and divestiture with my old team, because this is a real thing that people are going through in our industry. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about neuroplasticity is, the idea of bracing yourself for doom is something that's pervasive across our industry, because people keep losing their jobs. And then once they get a new job, they're like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't lose it again. And when you think about retraining your brain, you could actually retrain your brain to not brace for those moments and just let life flow. And it's really hard to do that. But when you think about data sets informing decisionings, again, you have to also think about where are those data sets coming from? How are they being, how are they actually being ingested? And then what are you going to be doing with them afterwards? Because like you said, there's plenty of players in the space that are doing MTA and MMM, right? Everybody has their own style, their own signature of what their proprietary technology does. But, like you said originally, there are pros and cons, and you have to work with the right data set. And
I agree 100%, Lauren. And I just, sorry to interrupt, but just to interject really fast, and you're kind of bringing up the job market, right, a little bit, and the trauma around, what we're dealing with as it relates to the hiring process, the expectations for performance. I mean, I read recently that a CMO's tenure is now less than 3 years, and the CMO is the one C-suite rep that's got their target on the back when things start going sideways or south. And so there's trauma around the stress of having to continue to perform, driving pipeline, driving acquisition, and keeping that in iterative perpetuity is so stressful. And it is trauma laden, based upon making sure that you're trying to meet your performance goals, you're trying to drive performance, trying to have that bottom line impact, revenue gen. All of that is more stressful than ever in my 25-year career. And it's not that things were done differently way back when. It's that the immediacy of the measurement is so it's so tangible, and it's so readily available that your performance is measured immediately, as opposed to more of a longer term empirical lift over time, that kind of an approach. So there's a lot of stress in terms of, where the job market is going, where the market is going, hanging on to your job. All of these things, I think, play into a mental state of continuous challenge.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I really feel so strongly about bringing this topic to the advertising technology community, because we all have dealt with that. Like to your original point about this with the CMO, right? That's something you're a fractional CMO, but you're also selling to CMOs, and you're actually like most of the SaaS solutions that I've ever been a part of, or even at an advertising level, we're selling to those CMOs, and you want to make sure that like the whole point is for them to be able to keep their job. Right. And how do you do that? How do you keep your job if you're a CMO? You need to have a clean data set that you can then make decisioning off of, right? And if you don't,
Absolutely.
you have to get a better data set. And it's the same thing as when we think about training our brains. Like we keep making those same decisions over time based on those faulty sets of logic, and it compounds over time, just like interest. And if you have the ability to change that and to step back and say, hey, this isn't working for me, or I don't have to feel this way anymore. Like I have one of my girlfriends was out of work for 3 years. And by the way, it'll be June. It'll be 3 years since I haven't had a full-time job, and I've been scaling my business. And, I was bootstrapping this, and currently it's really scary. It's really scary. And it's beyond just losing your job. It's like, can you even get an interview? I've had a prolific and volatile career, and I can barely make it past the first round anymore. And I've been on site at Amazon, Google, Facebook. I worked for Oracle. I worked for PayPal, eBay, New York Times. I've had a prolific career. Like I had a recruiter recently say to me, like, even people with a perfect resume. And I'm like, I have a perfect resume. It's not my fault that these companies made decisions to get rid of our business units, But when you think about that, we don't have to live in a state of fear as humans. We don't have to live in a hyperarousal state of instability. We can train our brains to just go with the flow, to surrender. And it's really hard, but it's something that I've been working on, and something that this community, this advertising industry needs to learn, because it's not going to get better. We need to be able to roll with it. We need to be able to flow with it. And it's really hard as humans when you get a job and then you're afraid of losing it immediately. Like you're a fractional CMO and you understand what the CMOs are going through.
Right. And that's kind of the emergence of this fractional space, which has been more prevalent over the last 3 to 5 years, more so in the last couple of years, because, companies don't want to hire at the senior level or the C-suite level. And they're looking for that contract plug-in. And it's more short-term, it's more situational and stopgap, which, for better or worse, that's just a way in which a lot of organizations are operating today. I feel like that is it's a good place to be in, because you understand the expectations that are around the role. Mainly, most of the time you're on contract, so there are boundaries and there's guardrails in terms of where you're at, which I think minimizes some of the stress. But nonetheless, the expectations are still at an all-time high.
Yeah, but the thing is that when those companies are hiring you, right, they want you on contract because they don't have to pay you benefits. So, like it's different, right? Like you're working.
It's risk adverse for them, for sure.
So it's different. They have different. Like I worked for companies that weren't even incorporated in the U.S. So I had to get my own incorporation, and luckily they gave me a stipend for insurance back then. And I had COBRA from whatever layoff. I think it was PayPal was my best insurance ever, second to Oracle. And I miss it. Like I'm on an ACA plan right now, and I can't get the medical treatment that I need right now because it's just not covered. And it's a major problem in our country. And the thing is like, when you think about safeguarding your job and doing all this, it all starts foundationally from a regulated nervous system. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who was talking about resilience. And, if you look at my profile, it says relentless and resilient with a capital R. And as I started this healing journey, I was like, yeah, I've been resilient, I've been relentless, but at what expense, right? And now I'm resilient and relentless, but I'm also resourced. I have the resources I need to find that stability and that baseline in my body, right? Because we always are going to have stress, but it's about how we're going to handle the stress, even the stress 100%. That overwhelms us. And also being able to find it in a regulated fashion, because any decision that's made, whether it's in business or personal, has to be done from a regulated nervous system. And the reason I'm literally like, this changed my life the same way that, like third-party measurement changed my life with a mobile first approach, because I spent all my career trying to explain the performance of all of these campaigns that I would run, and we would say, why did it perform poorly? And we had a different type of measurement that informed us. And then I was like, aha, this is why. And that's how I ended up in data and analytics, actually, because I was like, this just changed everything. And that's how I feel.
Right.
I feel like that was like enlightenment. And that's what I feel about this. And I know for a fact that our industry doesn't have anybody that's talking about this, because I worked for some of the biggest companies in the world. We had so many resources, and nobody once taught me how to breathe. Nobody taught me about neuroplasticity. So I'm the most excited to talk with you about this today, because I know also from our previous conversations that you do a lot of work both in and out of the office. So I'd love for you to share about a little bit about what you're doing beyond just your day-to-day job.
Sure. But before I go down that path, Lauren, I just want to kind of backtrack real quick and just kind of underscore when you talk about regulation, right? That has to be so intentional, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it has
100%.
to be a conscious effort, and for me, it comes down to really that sphere of control, right? What's in that sphere of what I can control as opposed to what I can't control. And that's been a big problem that I've struggled with over the years in terms of controlling the unknown, trying to control things that are out of my hands. That just increases the stress level exponentially, and I've learned to dial that back into focusing on what I can control, letting things go, and optimizing my strengths in that regard. So that's a really important aspect of my mental health management, I guess, in terms of dealing with the craziness of this space. And again, it is a crazy space, because one thing I've also noticed, performance expectations are becoming so unrealistic at the C-suite level.
Yeah.
And
I think it's at
having
all levels. It's at all levels.
to re-educate a C-suite decision-making team as to what the reasonable and rational expectations are for performance is at an all-time high. It is incredibly difficult to get those very high-powered individuals to think in different terms. And so there's just a lot there that goes into the mental component of this type of job, and how you can cognitively and sentiently manage it is really the big challenge.
Yeah. And I think, to go back to your original point about the control, because like I was in therapy since I was 5. It's funny for me to look back at my posts and just things that I've put out into the universe of how I've been able to help people in the past, because people would always come to me as their therapist. Like I was like, I'm not a therapist. I don't want to be a therapist. My life is on fire. Like, I don't know why you think I could help you. And people have always come to me. So I'm operationalizing this. But I was taught at a very young age through psychotherapy, which doesn't take into account the mind-body connection, which is why I was in undiagnosed lifelong survival mode, and why I got to till I was almost 40 for anyone to solve this. It doesn't take into account the mind-body. So when you think about control, right, and releasing it, you need to get into your body in order to do that. Because I have a post from like 2020, and it sounds great. I remember people were like, thank you so much for your words. That's so helpful. And it was like, control what you can control. That's what I was always taught. You can't control anything else besides your response. But what you can control is how your body feels. And the thing is that when you don't have the ability to control, you need to get into your body and out of your head. And that is the one thing that no one teaches us how to do. So that's what I'm here to do, is to help everyone figure that out. Because to your exact point, it does create a lot of stress when you're trying to just trying to have a conversation at work. Yeah. And how do you do that in a way that's effective and that doesn't send your body into a hyperarousal state? Because you could logically understand things that are out of your control. But unless your body feels safe in those decisions and those thoughts, you're never going to be able to to release it. So yeah, no, I think it's really important. And thank you for sharing that, because that's actually a point that I've thought about often.
Yeah, no, and great point on your end in terms of regulating your body, because you do have control over your body, right? And with the right process and protocol in place, you can control how your body is going to respond, right? And that is so important, because again, you don't always have control over the event, right? But you have pretty much 100% control over your response, which can influence and impact the outcome, right? From
Yeah.
both a physical and a mental standpoint. So all of those things I think are really important, to, like I said, intentionality, to intentionally continue to ruminate and to think through,
Well,
to
no,
really,
we're not going to ruminate though, because that's the thing. The rumination is actually what you don't want. The
yeah,
rumination keeps you in your head. So and I'm not trying to correct you, but I've done a lot of trauma work. I have some trauma certifications. So one of the things I want to be able to do is explain like what we shouldn't be doing, because I agree with you. Like I used to think that, if I thought about something enough, like I stayed in my marriage for over 10 years and I would been unhappy in it the whole time, but I thought it was safer for me to be with a partner than it was to be alone without any family and keep losing my job every few years, even though I was the one supporting us. So when you think about intentionality, 100%, everything has to be intentional, but it also has to be done with people that are qualified, right? Like I understand trauma. And when you think about controlling your body, you really can't control the response in your body, but you can control the conditions for healing, and you can control the way in which your body ingests those stimuli. So, despite my best efforts, like I have had trauma responses in my body, even though I thought I was regulated. And it's
yeah,
just like you said, it's the same thing as data, right? Like the way you keep intentionally having data sets, right? Picking up different signals, you need to make sure that those signals are clean and you're not working with dirty or messy data sets. And it's the same thing
right,
about what happens in your life. Like you can't control everything, but you can control whether or not you have the ability to get your body in or out of a state of hyperarousal. And sometimes
hmm,
you do want to be in a state of hyperarousal just so that you could perform well. But in general, like to your point, you do have to think about what you can control, what you can't control. And the only thing that I know to be true is that nervous system regulation is literally a panacea, because that is how we have success. Because when you go into those meetings, you could say, hey, guess what? I'm calm. I did everything I could to move this forward. And if it doesn't happen, that's out of your control. And you can make sure your body and mind are aligned in that, because often our minds are
right,
aligned, but our bodies are not.
right. No, that's a good point. I think, to my earlier point about rumination, I think really from my standpoint, my process, my personal protocol is rumination based upon the positive reinforcers that are going to put me in a better place to think more rationally and to make sure that I'm self-regulated in that regard. So I guess that was really kind of what I was trying to punctuate there. So
Yeah, no, I don't like using the word rumination, because that like keeps people stuck. But yeah,
yeah,
that's why I use the mantra. That's why I have the mantra moments, because that's a good way. Any of the mantra moments that I've been using for years or on Merch with a Perp, that's a really good way to reset your nervous system and like think about positive things. That's what I was
right,
doing for years without trying to. And that's neuroplasticity in action. Because when you were able to show your nervous system new positive events, you're going to find it more and more. Your body will look for it. But if you keep cycling around the same things that are keeping you stuck, your body's also going to stay stuck. And these are
right.
things I had to learn the hard way.
I think we all have to learn them the hard way in many respects. I mean, I don't think any of us are designed to not our nervous system and our processes are perfect, right? And it's a constant process of, like I said, intentionality, being aware, self-awareness.
Yeah. But it's not even that. It's also like we need to learn about this, right? It's even beyond
100%.
self-awareness and being intentional. It's literally like you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
So that's why I have it. It's called Learn, Unlearn, Educate, Empower, and Elevate. That's the mission here, because it's about learning new things, but also unlearning things. Because
yeah,
you can't progress, and you can't do anything beyond what you know unless you unlearn things that are keeping you stuck, right? And it's the same thing with data. Unless you remove those
yeah,
sources that are corrupting your data sets, then nothing's ever going to change. So I know we're almost at time here, and thank you so much for your
yeah.
time. Where can people find you if they beyond
Uh,
LinkedIn?
just don't, yeah. That's pretty much my primary portal is LinkedIn, and that's I can be found there. But I feel like again, just to kind of summarize real fast in terms of you know where the market is at. I mean, not just the advertising industry, but I think the broader professional industries are there's a lot of people under stress, and there's a lot of people that are really challenged. And I first off want to thank you, Lauren, for bringing these things to light to really help others better understand better learn and unlearn, because I think the unlearning part is really critical, because there's a lot of institutionalized elements within us that are so cornerstone and foundational that we don't know that we have to unlearn some of that. So I just wanted to say thank you for, for doing what you're doing, because I think it's really helpful.
No, thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing everything with us. I think it's really
Yeah,
important. And everything you talked about, everybody in our industry is going through. And it is, you're right. It's the Buddhist way of Buddhist unlearn something every day. And
right.
that's really like, it's like you don't know what you don't know. And when you're able to unlearn, but also learn a healthier way, you could change your whole life. And it's the conditioning, like you were talking about, that we don't realize that we're just born with. And it's the same thing, whether it's corporate America or your family life. Like I didn't understand how trauma was pervasive, how it affected every part of my life. But until I looked at life through the lens of trauma, and then it's like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for all
absolutely.
you do in and out of the office. And I'm really excited to see where this goes with Attributy. I love attribution.
Awesome. Yeah,
I'm excited to talk to you offline about this more. Maybe we could
awesome.
figure out some nerdy things. But thank
Absolutely.
you so
Thanks so much,
much.
Lauren.
Yeah, no, thank you. And everyone else, we'll have another live next week at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be having another Brian on, who I believe his name is Brian Speck something. I can't say, I don't know what it is, Speckler or Specklin, who works with men. So I'm really excited about that. And I also want to share that I've recently launched in partnership with Propel Earth, Stefan Michael. I don't know if you know him, but if you don't, you're going to get to know him. He is a 23-year-old boy genius. And he and I are actually doing an event on March 20th. And I can't send out invites for it right now on LinkedIn because I'm maxed out with invites. But there will be a QR code in the next one. And the whole idea, it's called Anxiety Antidote Events. And it was actually born from my own anxiety that I didn't even know I had until I was almost 40. And now that I've been in my healing era, I go to different networking events and I feel stress in my body. And I realize there's a better way to network. So we're doing just a regular networking event on March 20th in New York City, but we will be rolling this out across the country and maybe the world, hopefully soon. And we're also going to be focusing on entrepreneurs, job seekers, divorced dudes, parents, veterans, children, neurodivergent community, all the different people that need to reset their nervous system, dating, all the things that, when you go into any type of relational engagement, you need to learn how to reset your nervous system. So you'll also, when you join our event, you'll also be able to get a Camuso fidget flex, a Camuso flex fidget toy that helps you breathe. And we're going to show you how to use it. So I will be sending out, or maybe I'll send out invites to that, and I'll be able to put the URL in the comments here. So I hope you can join us for the Anxiety Antidote events. And if you'd like, please book me for an Anxiety Antidote consulting session. And also, I'm here for any speaking engagements or any workshops that you may need, because our industry needs it. We all need a way to learn how to reset our nervous system and unlearn the habits that are keeping us stuck, so we could better our lives. Just like we train our brain, we could train AI, and we could train our brain to transform our lives. Thank you so much. And how are you healing? So all of the jewelry that I have behind me, I'm always wearing the Camuso shift necklace. And the reason why is that it actually is an anxiety antidote. It helps you shift into calm in real time. And it's all about the exhale. So what I like to do is do a 4-4-8 breath. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, and 8 seconds on the exhale. And the exhale is where the magic happens. It actually helps reduce your heart rate. It reduces blood pressure in real time, and it helps you breathe into calm. So let's do it together. Inhale for 4. It just feels so good. This is truly my favorite. From the beach to the boardroom, you could wear it everywhere.